Good afternoon. I believe our vice chair and our chair and our vice chair are not here today. I believe our second vice chair is Patty Benger. If you'd like to run our meeting today and let me know whatever you might need.
Sure, thank you. I'm actually first vice chair, but no matter. Just for the minutes. So I will. Do we have a quorum?
We do.
I'll call the meeting to order then, of course, at 3:03. And first item on the agenda is the consent items, which is just the agenda and the minutes from last month. I'll entertain a motion to approve those if anyone's so interested.
Roy Rosenthal, so moved.
Thank you, Roy. Any seconds?
Bill Bowles, a second.
Thanks, Bill. All in favor of approving the consent items, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Yeah,
Motion carries unanimously. Public comments. Do we have any public comments, Danelle?
We do not.
Okay, anybody in the room there, I assume? Okay. We are on to information items already. And Danelle, that's the CAC officer elections.
Yes, thank you. Let me scroll down to it. So I just wanted to bring this item, we as staff wanted to bring this item to your attention because the officer elections will be next month in November. And we just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to think of whether you would like to be an officer, whether you would like to nominate someone else to be an officer. Right now, we do have Miley Foster as chair, Patty Benger as first vice chair, and Michael Colombe as second vice chair. Officers may be nominated by, we didn't really put together a membership subcommittee for CAC at this point, but generally in the past, it's been done from the floor. Elected officers are a one-year term. And generally, per our bylaws, officers can be reelected, but may not serve more than 2 consecutive terms. And I believe, Patty Benger, I believe you are not going to be with us after November 30th.
That's right. Yeah, I'm have a lot of commitments right now, so I'm not able to apply for a second term.
So that will, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, does it make sense, Danelle, then to talk about if anyone's interested or has any questions about that at this meeting so that we can prepare for next meeting?
I think that would make sense. So Miley Foster is the chair. I believe she's still eligible for another term as chair. Michael Colombe is still eligible for a second term as either second vice chair or first vice chair if he were interested in that. Does anybody have any questions? Are you interested in being an officer?
Okay. Welling Clark. Yes, I am IT challenged. One thing that would be a benefit is if a link can be sent out to all committee members about what the duties and responsibilities are.
Yes.
Because some of us are new again and we're naive.
Absolutely. And we're actually putting together some new member materials. We kind of lost some institutional knowledge here with some staff changes in the past few months. So hopefully we will do better in the future when we welcome new members. But yes, I will send an email to everybody that lets you know what the chair or what the officer duties are. Any other questions? Nothing else in the room. I don't see any hands raised online.
Okay, moving on then to our first action item, 5A, PPACG Legislative Themes Brochure. Danelle. Oh, yeah, that is you.
It is. And I see John Liasados is also online. He's our transportation director here, but he will be available to answer questions if I can answer them on this item and the following item as well. So every year we have a legislative committee that puts together some legislative themes. We'll be holding a legislative roundtable later in November with our state elected officials in this area. And the intent is to pass on our themes and initiatives and priorities relative to PPACG issues to those folks and to have a discussion with those individuals. This is the brochure that was developed by staff with the legislative committee, and we wanted to bring it to the CAC for review prior to us actually printing this and then taking it to that legislative roundtable. John, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, sorry.
No, you're okay.
No, nothing to add, sorry.
Does anyone have any questions? Do you have any concerns or suggestions regarding this?
I just had a question. If you can go back up to the first page of the brochure. So the legislative initiatives, I wanted to learn more about allowing the public sector retirees to fill workforce shortages. Is there pending legislation that you've heard about that could make that possible? What does that look like?
John, did you want to fill?
Yeah,
Fill
as
this
far as pending legislation, Patty, I'm not sure that that we've seen anything yet, but we know through discussions with city and town managers throughout the region, there are very skilled positions that it's kind of a thing where they retire and they're actually penalized if they stay beyond their retirement, and they want to come back. But again, the way the system works is they're actually penalized for it. So the idea is that if there is a way we could come up with a win-win where people would be not penalized for working beyond beyond retirement, but two, then the win for government is we have some very highly trained folks that we would be able to bring back on a part-time or short-term basis to help. And as you know, we have quite a bit of no, excuse me, I'm misspeaking. The proper term would be there's quite a bit of a labor shortage, and especially for some of these highly specialized positions.
Okay, and John, are you the liaison for the legislative committee then?
Now that we've had to make a change due to staffing, it's more of a tag team approach. So yeah, you could use me as a point of contact, but Danelle's on that team as well as Jody Barker and Laura Cruz. So we're trying to split it up so that way we kind of have everything covered. Obviously, if it's a area agency on aging topic, Jody knows quite a bit more than I do. Oh, and I just saw on my little screen here, I just saw Jared walk up to the thing there. He's part of the team as well. So don't let Jared off the hook either.
Okay, well, I have a couple of thoughts on this one, just that Colorado Springs Utilities, we're a para employer. So in the past, when we've wanted to use retirees, we've brought them on with the temporary agency and have been able to successfully do that without impacting their para retirement. And my other thought is the Colorado Municipal League may have some ideas about that legislation and potentially could get some statewide support for an initiative like that.
Great. Yeah. Patty, what I'll do is I'll probably chat with Andy, and Andy and I will give you a call, get some of your thoughts, because Andy's been sort of the point of contact on this particular one, because he does have meetings with the state, the county and city administrators on a regular basis. And that's where this one sort of grew out of, was the need for more specialized labor. So we'll have Andy and I will give you a call and sort of pick your brain on some of your thoughts on this. So that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I did have a question about the first initiative, attainable senior housing. Has the attainable been defined, or are you guys using other metrics that are commonly do, like the 30% income?
I think it's always been affordable senior housing. I think this has been on our list for the last 3 years. And I think the word attainable senior housing was more of a compromise language from things that we had heard in the past for why it didn't move forward. So that being said, that sort of text change, Danelle, can you help me out? I think that came from Jody, and if Jody's in his office, someone run over and pound on his door and see if he can come out and talk to that, because I'm not sure why we changed the wording there.
I believe we also had a couple of county commissioners who supported changing that. I believe Commissioner Elsner and potentially Commissioner Stone wanted to use attainable rather than affordable.
Do you remember the reason for their change, or is that a Jody question?
I believe it's a Jody question. I don't recall off of the top of my head.
And if I can join in,
Sorry?
I was going to say, this is Jared Verner. I was going to throw in there as well. I believe the idea between affordable and attainable was something, especially from a commissioner perspective, was more directed towards being able to afford the housing based on, being able to move into a community and be able to purchase a home. I think affordable for a lot of these people had a connotation of low income. And I think that was the idea between attainable specifically with that word choice.
And I guess my question too is how do you know if you've reached your initiative? If attainable is kind of this, and affordable for that matter too, is kind of this ubiquitous term that is defined differently by different people. I'm not sure that it matters that much, just my 2 cents. That, a percentage of their income or using the housing affordability index might be another option. Just a thought.
Well, in Clark, with regards to attainable vice affordable, I've never had a quantitative assessment of what is affordable. Attainable means what can be done. Affordable means what should be done. I don't know if that helps out with that discussion there. I like attainable from the standpoint in that it means what can we attain? We may not have the resources to attain full affordable. The other thing with it, when we says affordable senior housing, is our quantitative value or amount of that proportionally matched up with our senior population, the proportion of our senior population in the area. And as far as allow public sector retirees to fill workforce without penalties, I am totally in favor of that. I would recommend the CAC to be in favor of it, because we're having shortages in our workplace and in our commercial sections. And if we get people back, I would not want to penalize them. I want to give them every benefit they can in the environment we're experiencing right now. So And is that just related to para, or is that into other retirements? Because El Paso County has employees that are outside of para. And I don't know if there's any other entities that fall into that category that they're outside of para. I know CSU and the city of Colorado Springs and other entities are hooked into para very strongly. Thank you.
Yes, and the county has their own pension program as well that's separate. That plays in. Okay, were there any other questions or thoughts about this item?
Chris Crockett, representing Kono. Apologize for my tardiness. I wanted to, this is just a question. On the second page, the last bullet under protect and enhance transportation throughout the region, the second sentence, reduction requirements. Is that a typo? Does that quantify, or does that qualify the first clause, or what does it mean? Thank you. That's really what I'm trying to figure out. And then the second comment that I would have would be on the regional quality of life. The bullets under that are really less about quality of life and more about input and decision making. And I just wondered where quality of life came from and how that supports it.
John, do you have any thoughts on those? I'm afraid the wording of those particular items was there before me.
Yeah, let's start with the first one. What, it's the second bullet or the oppose? What?
It's the final bullet under protect and enhance transportation. It says oppose mandates relating to employee trip reduction and or vehicle miles traveled, period, reduction requirements. I don't know what reduction requirements means.
Yeah, we could probably remove that. That's probably a good catch. I think it's redundant to what we had talked about previously.
Okay.
And then your second thing on the quality of life points, there's been a long-term philosophical approach in this region to oppose unfunded mandates from the state. And so the regional quality of life sort of question here is getting at, or intended to get at, and perhaps we've missed the mark, is that they want to make sure that as legislators rather are thinking of these things, a lot of times it's either A, an unfunded mandate, or B, trying to usurp local control of how we do things here in El Paso County and Park and Teller, for that matter, being that we are multi-regional, and trying to insist that we do things in that certain way. And so sort of the ongoing question of pushing back on unfunded mandates or usurpation of local control. One of the commissioners, well, maybe it could have been a council person now that I think about it, but the bottom line is that there was this sort of the quality of life issue, that we locally are the best ones to assess our quality of life and therefore enact the appropriate laws and statutes to get to that quality of life, and not have that be a mandate, financial or otherwise, coming from the northern part of the state.
Okay, Welling Clark, El Paso County. Removing, I just want to comment, removing reductions, because that is vague. I think that's a good idea unless it could be quantified or qualified. The second thing was regional quality of life that was brought forward. In reading those two bullets, what you're seeing is it's the intent I'm seeing as a citizen is we want to maximize local control to maintain our quality of life. Now, maybe there's better wordage than what I just said, but I want to thank you for bringing that up.
Danelle, what does the timeline look like on this item? Are you guys looking for some
good.
action today? Do we need to propose some rewording so that the item can move forward, or can this wait another month?
We are actually hoping to have action on it today. The reason being that we would like to have our board adopt this so that we can have it printed and have it available at that legislative roundtable, which is planned for either the week of the 13th or the week after Thanksgiving in November. However, I will say that we also intend to bring potentially have a second draft of this, because we will have potentially some board leadership changes that will require a change of this brochure. So I don't know if that could potentially be a second opportunity to make wording changes as well. John, do you have thoughts on that timeline?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely correct, Danella. Obviously, the board would like to see it at its next board meeting so we could approve it prior to the legislative roundtable. As far as it coming back again, I believe if you go back to or you go to the next page, Danelle, the prior page, the only change that's anticipated would not be any of the wording, but rather just changing the board leadership after our January board meeting, which is what the annual meeting, excuse me. So once the annual meeting comes, they elect officers. So the officer under the current board leadership will change and we will reprint. But none of the other text is going to change. So this is pretty much it.
Thank you, John.
Welling Clark, El Paso County, a possible recommendation to move this forward at the same time you'd express the comments of the CAC is to say the CAC approves this, but they would recommend at the reduction of the requirements, let the board decide it at that time. And then possibly the renaming of regional quality of life is maybe to maximize local control, government control to max, for quality of life or something of that nature. And that would allow you to move it forward, but also express the will of the CAC if the CAC is agreeable to that.
Yeah, that would be good.
I would recommend, what if we just renamed it quality of life rather than regional, and then reference that first bullet, rephrased it to say something like local government is in the best position to determine local needs to attain high quality of life and the funding for those needs, something like that.
Oh, are you talking in the boardroom? I can't hear. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Those of us
Welling?
online
Oh,
can't
go
hear
ahead.
the discussions if you guys are talking
Well,
relative to this item.
I was just going to say there's a word for that. It's called the principle of subsidiarity, local control, rather than top down, it's bottom up. And so it's local control. That's where we all live. Well, you don't have to put that in. I was just thinking of that, the churches struggle with that kind of concept too.
Welling Clark, El Paso County, would it be beneficial for the members to kind of provide some input to the PPACG about that? And then maybe have the staff look at the best wordage to provide the intent of what was meant in this document.
Certain.
Is that acceptable to the CAC?
Yes. Yes.
So it sounds like we need to get a motion to take action on this item. And we can do that with a note that recommended rewording or adjustments, something like that. If anyone wants to make that motion.
Repeat myself. I don't even know what I just said. Excuse me. I was just told to this is Welling Clark, El Paso County. I was just told to repeat myself and I don't remember what I just said. No, but I would recommend a motion that the PPACG board remove reduction requirements because it is vague and unspecified. And the second thing is that with input from the staff that they have received from the CAC member comments, that the regional quality of life be reworded a little bit because it is about maximum local control to maintain quality of life, or words to that effect. And please do not ask me to repeat that. Don't put that in the minutes. Thank you. That's
Just
my
a
motion.
matter of clarity, Wellington.
Yes,
You said that you wanted to recommend a motion. Are you proposing that motion? Are you
I
so moving?
propose that motion, but don't ask me to repeat that. How's that?
Sounds good. Anyone wanted to second that?
Roy Rosenthal, I'll second.
Thank you,
Ed
Roy.
Dills just seconded it.
Oh,
Okay.
You can yell into this.
We have a first and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries unanimously.
All right, I gotta run, so thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John. The next item on the agenda is Danelle again. It's the action item 5B, fiscal year 2023 to 2027, tip amendment number 3.
Yes, thank you again. We do have a tip amendment for you today. There are several additions or changes that CDOT has asked us to make. However, those need to come through the board process. I will run through those in just a minute, but I wanted to get to the second piece of the tip amendment quickly before we start getting into individual projects. The second part of the tip amendment is actually a local project for El Paso County. And what happened was in the summer of this year, we awarded some funding. It was multimodal transportation and mitigations option fund funding to El Paso County for a fleet electrification project. We did at the time talk about it with CDOT and talked about the eligibility, but it's a fairly new funding source. And so CDOT brought it to us and said, we're just a little bit concerned that this project doesn't meet the intent of that funding. It does not directly provide a benefit to the public because it is funding for county vehicles. And so what we proposed with CDOT and El Paso County, we also have a notice of funding availability right now for several other funding sources. One of those funding sources is a carbon reduction program. This is a new funding source that's a federal fund that PPACG is administering that was established by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So what we're proposing along with CDOT is to basically swap that funding. So the MMOF will come back to PPACG and we will have that available for the jurisdictions and other entities to apply for. And instead, El Paso County will get carbon reduction program funding for this particular project. And the TAC has heard about this and they agreed in the last TAC meeting, which was last week. But we wanted to, of course, bring it to the CAC and the board to make that funding swap happen. So I wanted to explain that because that's kind of a nuanced item. And then, yes, if you go to that page right there, thank you, Jared. There is a list of projects that was given to us by CDOT. This is the CDOT proposed additions for FY24 through 27. And these are all funding additions to existing projects. There's no new projects on here. They're related to existing efforts. So I always get into a point where I'm not sure how much to explain. But so the first project, you feel free to stop me, ask questions. The first project addition up at that top there is this is RPP is, it just went out of my head, a regional priority pool funding. And that is for additions for US 24 safety improvements. Yes, ma'am.
Can you turn on your microphone? We can't hear the question.
Can you explain a little further about that on United States, on US 24,
Yes. And unfortunately,
the safety? I think we've discussed it. I'm sure we did. There were a lot of extra things. And
we have, unfortunately, CDOT couldn't be here today.
but it's the regional, what did you say, priority?
It is a regional priority pool funding.
Pool
And
funding.
it's CDOT funding that CDOT kind of allocates and moves as needed for certain projects. But I know that a part of the reason for this project or for these funding changes are pretty much every transportation project in the region when it goes out to bid is coming back higher than originally estimated.
So you just need more money.
So yes, a lot of these are moving around funding or adding funding to projects to try to get some
Oh,
of these
okay.
existing projects completed.
Now I see what you're doing. Okay,
Oh.
thank you.
Well, in Clark, El Paso County, would it then be fair to say that the projects haven't changed, the cost has, and that this adjustment is to cover the increased costs of those approved projects?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, these projects have already been approved. They've been in the TIP. It's I believe they're all either current or past 10-year plan projects. So they're just trying to get the funding in to get them completed. And we also did find out what our additional allocations from the IIJA funding were. So that is part of it as well, is moving those monies around.
And for clarification, that extra $800,000 comes out of CDOT's pockets
Correct.
and not out of PPACG's.
Correct. None
Okay,
of
thank you.
these fundings on this page are from PPACG allocated funding. But because they are in our region, we run them through our committee process. Does anybody else have any specific questions about any of these projects or the funding sources for them? Mhm. Yeah.
Technology sucks. But, I just have a quick question on US 24 Falcon Judge or intersection improvement. That one is listed 2024, 2025, 2026. Does it mean it will start from 2023 to all the way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So those are the fiscal years that funding is allocated in. It doesn't necessarily reflect the exact timeline of the project completion. It's just the years of the funding.
Shelley Roars with the League of Women Voters. So can you clarify something that you just said?
Mhm.
These were in projects before that we've looked at. These are not new.
Correct.
Okay. So a couple questions then.
Mhm.
Under surface treatments for US 24 and 115.
Mhm.
And then you break it out. First of all, surface treatment. I know you're not DOT. I apologize for that. So this is a lot of money.
It is.
What is surface treatment? Are you literally just going to overlay over what's there? You're not going to fix what's there. We're just literally kind of laying over what's there. Is that what I understand?
It is overlay. I think I'm trying to check if there's additional, so yeah, resurfacing, it may have some guardrail replacement. I know that is an issue. The 115 project also includes ADA curb rehabilitation, replacement, restriping, erosion control. Those are all elements of that project as well. I believe the same is true of the US 24 project.
Okay, and then that's kind of where all those are listed, and then you go out into the project overview. So everything that's up there and up above where it just breaks down all the money, then you go down and you actually break it down into a little bit more, right? Is that right? I
Yes.
understand. Okay.
Yes, the project overview reports we have an online database for every project that's in our transportation improvement program. And these are just the reports that come out of that system.
Okay. Going back up to where you mentioned the electrification project
Yes,
that is being possibly money from somewhere else. And you said TAC met and agreed at a meeting last week, right? So the funds are
Yes.
there via TAC.
correct.
They've approved it. It's not like they're going to say, nope, sorry, we're not going to do this now.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
They have.
And then in the redistribution of those ARPA money that is now sitting out there, can we submit that it go to a similar electric related project?
I don't know that our process allows for tagging it like that. I do know we do have an open notice of funding availability. We did put out an email last week that said we are anticipating this amount coming out or becoming available for applications. I don't think per our process, we're allowed to actually tag it and say it has to go toward electrification though.
Okay, but in our specific meetings then for our TAC and CAC, we have said we want this money to go here. So how do we put in our notes when we approve that money again, that this is what it was before? How do we do that from a reference perspective? Even if you can't tag it, I understand you can't tag it if that's the case. But
That's a good question. We can include a note in our transportation improvement program. We can include some notes in that so this particular funding source, the MMOF, is state money. Well, it's complicated because this particular money is actually ARPA money, but it is run through the state MMOF program. So they have to fill out a specific form for the state. And there is an individual or a couple of individuals at CDOT who actually run this program and make sure that project statuses are getting updated and that kind of thing, because it all falls under Senate Bill 260. So there's particular eligibilities and requirements that go along with being part of MMOF. And I know they're all aware of what we're doing here. They've all signed off on it, but we can put, particular notes in our system and in their system that says this is where this money came from. Does that answer your question?
yes, I think
Okay.
a little bit. Thank you. And I've got a few other, when we get down to those project overviews, I have a few more questions, but I'll save
Okay.
those for later. Thank
Does anyone else have anything at this point?
I actually have a question on the same topic.
Sure.
Do the funds that are now going to be available, do they have an expiry date that we need to have them allocated by?
They do actually, because it comes from the ARPA, it's the American Rescue Plan Act funding. They have to be obligated in 2024, and they actually have to be expended by the end of 2026, which is in our notice of funding availability. So anybody who applies is aware of that.
Okay. And I'm sorry, this is Chris Crockett with Kono. And then just to follow up on that, is there any concern that it will not be able to be used?
No, I don't believe so. In fact, I know of at least 2 of our jurisdictions who are interested in applying for it. I believe some other folks will be as well, because this is an MMOF funding. It is also available to like some of our other transit organizations like the Invita or who's the other, I can't think of the name, but in Invita and some other folks, Silver Keys, some of those have gotten MMOF funding in the past, and they would be eligible for this as well. Would you like me to walk through the individual project overviews? Would that be helpful?
I can't
Sure.
see the room, but I'm okay with, you provided it all there. We can read it certainly. Unless someone else in the room feels differently or online.
Additional questions?
So I don't need page by page, but I do have some questions if you don't mind. Thank
Of
you.
course.
This is Shelley Roars with the League of Women Voters. The first one, Garden of the Gods to Fillmore,
Mhm.
right? That's my neck of the woods. We go from 0 to 3 million in that one category, right? Tell me what that is, please.
That's faster funding. That's another source of CDOT funding that is allocated throughout the state. I can't remember where the faster funding, let me bring up my funding spreadsheet.
So basically you're getting additional money
Correct.
from them.
Yes.
Explain to me how that works, because I hear just a few minutes ago, we talked about all of our projects going up. The
Mhm.
price of this project didn't go up. Your funding went up.
The price of the project did go up when they went out to bid.
Is it reflected in all of this here? There's a difference?
No, so our tip doesn't necessarily reflect the project cost when they get the estimates or when they get the proposals for the actual project cost. We really are just required by law to reflect the funding and the funding sources, if that makes sense.
It does, but it seems very confusing to me. No offense.
No,
That seems a bit backwards.
Mhm.
So literally all you do is list the funding, not what the estimated, let's go back. The people who survey and do all of the work to say, this is what your project needs that costs us hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars every
Mhm.
year. You're taking the funding money, not what they say in there, and you're putting it into the report. That's what I hear.
the transportation improvement program. So let me step back a bit. So our long range transportation plan, which is a 25-year plan, for that we include estimates of projects. The transportation improvement program is our 4 to 5 year plan, and really that is just the actual allocation of funds. So we don't include anything in here until it is actually granted funds, and it is it is required by federal law for us to include certain funding streams and document what projects those funding streams go to, and ensure that their correct local matches and things like that are included. But no, we are not required to have an up-to-date estimate of the project full cost.
Okay. From a transparency perspective, it might be good for the community just to maybe include that in the future. I don't know, just my opinion. Going down to Baptist Road and Terrazzo Drive improvements. Page number 22. This one's a funky one. In your description, it says that this is a high truck traffic. I've been on this road, right? There's a bunch of gas stations and sleeping quarters for the truckers. Roundabouts are recommended. I would assume that you're using a special size roundabout. Is that, I didn't
Yes.
see that kind of stuff, but that would be something that I'm not just going to see the Garden of the Gods roundabout.
No,
Right?
no. There was actually and it hasn't been predetermined yet that will be a roundabout. Right now, what's being done is a study to determine what will actually be there.
I thought it said it is recommended. It specifically says recommending a
It does.
roundabout.
It was recommended, I believe, by the environmental documentation
Mhm.
in a prior stage. So that I should clarify myself, the final design of the intersection hasn't been determined yet. But yes, because there is there's actually a gas station at that intersection with a lot of truck traffic. There's a special emphasis been put by CDOT on this intersection and making sure that it is safe for both pedestrian or non-truck traffic and truck traffic in getting in and off of the interstate there.
So we'll see a final design on that one at some point.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Also regarding that same project on the very next page, this project cost went from 300,000 to 1.8 million. Can someone explain that to me?
It did, because the original 300,000 did not include all of the things that this one does. The original 300,000 was just for initial design. And the project, so this project, and I'm sorry, I can't say what the eventual cost will be for full construction. But this is common with some of these CDOT projects where the first phase is design. And so we'll have a project and they'll put money into it. And then as the project goes along, they'll need to add more funding to it to actually build out that project. So it's the same project in phases rather than, putting all of the money in the project at once.
Again, I'm going to go back to that. If I could see that number at the very end, that might help me to say, wow, that's really not that much of a transition from
Sure.
one to another.
Sure.
But I'm curious as to whether that 1.8 is even going to be enough for that project. I'd like to see that, please, from someone from DOT. Okay. Please.
Welling Clark, El Paso County. What may be a benefit for the CAC is when we see a project cost and increased, and all the projects have increased in cost, but the scope of the project, from what I've heard, appears to change. If we can say like the initial cost was just for the planning or whatever the word was, and then the 1.8 is for everything else added on,
Right.
that would
Right.
actually add clarity, I think, to the CAC here and help us better understand the deltas and the changes.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you. And I will request from CDOT that someone is able to join CAC. I'm not.
I think the CAC would really enjoy that. I mean, appreciate that. Excuse me.
Awesome. I've got one more question. The next project is Nelson Boulevard to I-25, pages 24, 25. On page 25, you talk about the description change from the project will consist to the project will consist. I've read that probably 5 times. I have literally found no change in the description. Can you explain to me what the change is for that project, please?
I think that might be a database error, honestly, because I don't believe the project changed for this.
Your project increases again, we're 2,335% increases. So I would assume
Yes.
you changed something there. If we could get some more clarification, that would appreciate that.
Is it
Welling Clark, El
possible-
Paso. Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
Let me see. Okay. Is it possible because it says plan revision name change from amend 2 to amend 3?
Yeah, I'm wondering if that project description changed at the previous. So this is a project that we amended previously. And I'm trying to remember. why the change was. I know that there was one. And I really wish there was a CDOT person here because I don't know all of their projects.
Welling Clark, El Paso County, I would make a strong recommendation on based what I'm hearing from their CAC members that we have CDOT representation here. And I'll say that why, because I don't think it's fair. PPACG staff should be trying to read what CDOT provides and CDOT's not here to explain that. It's an unfair disadvantage for you to have to do that.
No, I appreciate that. And they were here at TAC last week. I wish they were here this week because I know that they have the answers that you want. And I just don't have all of them, unfortunately, but
Question then, how does the CAC present this message to the PPACG board to ensure that we do have CDOT representation here to adequately explain the questions that you're not really privy to of some of the finer details that are not in these documents?
yeah, we can certainly have the TAC make a motion to recommend that CDOT be represented at CAC meetings that involve CDOT projects.
Okay. Again, Welling Clark. And the reason I'm saying that is it's not fair to local staff to try to justify someone else from a higher level of government information that's provided to them that is less than readily transparent and understanding, for lack of a better term. And please help me if there's a better case. But the only thing the CAC can do if there are questions like this that arise is disapprove this request. And I think the CAC would rather have a better understanding and a fuller understanding and a proper understanding in all three aspects so we can make an educated decision and not have to push back. And again, I think this is a CDOT issue and a problem and not a PPACG problem. So anything we can do to ensure they have representation here, I most strongly advise. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Gary Sugar at large. I guess my comment would be that I hear what everybody's saying, but the TAC is the one that put this together. CDOT was there. They were comfortable with what it is. So I guess I'm not sure why we're questioning what the TAC has already put forward. We're just kind of an intermediate step as it goes to the board. I'm perfectly comfortable with the way this is to go forward to the board.
Welling Clark, El Paso County, in that case, I would recommend that we have a TAC member present to explain what they have provided. Was my understanding, I thought this was CDOT provided.
It is CDOT provided, but it did go through the TAC and was approved by the TAC.
So is it possible then that the CAC, too many acronyms, sorry. Can we have a TAC representative here to describe and explain to us so we can answer our questions?
I think in this case, it would probably still make more sense for CDOT to be here because again, anyone from TAC is still not going to be super familiar with every single project on the list. I can certainly ask the TAC folks if they would be available, but I think it's probably a CDOT representative that.
And to add on the previous comment, which is excellent from that standpoint, is the TAC may have knowledge that is not available to the citizens. And so that's why the citizens are asking those questions.
I would also reiterate that we are not a rubber stamp for the TAC committee.
That being said, does anyone want to make a motion? They are looking for some kind of action, which we could disapprove. We could postpone. I know there's a few different feelings here. All right. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Welling Clark, I'm just mad at CDOT for not being here.
And they often are, but you know, as Danelle said, I'm not sure the reason why this particular time they're not, but it's a fair question, asking us to approve something that we still have questions or concerns for.
Question to Welling Clark, question to PPACG. Hearing some comments offline about tabling or something, what is the time requirements for this to move forward? Is there time to table it to get that information? Does a decision have to be made? What would be what's your information on that?
And Chris Crockett with Kona, the further question with that is, can it be cut in half and we have a motion to review and recommend the swap aspect, but table all of the questions about the individual projects, since that's where I think most of the concerns.
Certainly you could do that. The concern with tabling it would be just pushing out the timeline. So a project is, the funding is supposed to be in our TIP and our STIP prior to them actually being able to go out to bid for that project or to fund that project. So that would potentially push some RFPs back. But I don't know the status of each of those projects. So I don't know if there would be potential impacts to those individual projects.
So then it's fair to say that Welling Clark, El Paso County, that the criticality from a time standpoint is currently unknown for these individual projects, whether it would be detrimental or not to the project going away and the funding dissipating or not.
Yes.
To
I mean,
know-
the funding won't go away. The funding doesn't have a deadline. It's really just, I know that some things are sensitive toward the construction window. But again, I don't know the particulars of these particular projects and what the status there is.
If a motion were made today to postpone or disapprove portions of this item, could a follow-up be given later on, potentially offline by email if needed? If there's a critical timeline that we're pushing up against that this body needs to take action on?
Yes. I believe that is possible. I know that we're not really supposed to do approvals by email if we can avoid it. But certainly I can reach out to CDOT and ask your questions and have them respond, or have them come back to a later meeting. Those are options.
It sounds to me that if we needed to vote on this, and no one's made a motion, so please forgive me if I get this wrong. But it sounds to me that we're not really prepared to approve that item, that portion of the item today. And I guess if you find out in between this meeting and our next meeting that it's detrimental to some specific project, then I would suggest maybe using an email option as needed, but request that CDOT perhaps attend and explain at the next meeting.
I also have an idea, I was thinking if we disapprove, the directors can always override us. We're just supposed to give our opinions, aren't we?
That's right.
We're not the official end.
Is it possible to do a Zoom meeting on this instead of an email?
Certainly.
Because
Mhm.
that way we'd still have a meeting and it would take you off the hook for an email meeting if we could do that.
We can certainly set up a special meeting just for this item. Mhm.
So I would be open to that.
Yeah, Welling Clark, I would concur. I think that's an excellent idea from the standpoint we can maybe get CDOT representation there to answer the questions to move this project forward. We all want something to succeed, but the feeling I'm getting from most citizens is that there's unanswered questions and they feel uneasy doing something that kind of gives the appearance of a rubber stamp.
Mhm.
This is Shelley Roars with the League of Women Voters. I wouldn't mind another meeting on this to get those answers. I would respectfully request that it be after Election Day for us, November 8th. No offense, but that would be awesome. Thank you very much.
This is Jared Werner. I will just point out in terms of a timeline perspective, the board of directors meets the day after Election Day on November 9th. So just kind of keep that in mind in terms of the other meetings cadence that is involved.
Well, this is Roy Rosenthal. I would go with what Ann said. We table it. It goes to the board on the 9th, approved by the Transportation Committee and tabled by us, and the board could decide what to do.
Well, and Clark, and adding on to that comment, the reason why it was tabled by the CAC can be explained to the PPACG board because questions arose. CDOT representatives were not present to answer the questions, and we did not have someone with the technical expertise of TAC personnel to answer those questions.
Mhm.
And do not ask me to repeat that. Thank you.
That's good.
Okay, I'll call for any motions again.
Well, and Clark, I have a question to the CAC. When one of the terms was to postpone our decision because of what happened, is that actually a motion?
I did not make that motion. It was a suggested.
No, that was a suggestion, but is that a valid motion? Normally motions are to pass or to with or without amendments or to not approve. I'm
You
just
can
in my
make a
third
motion
meeting.
to
I just
table.
need some extra information.
You can make a motion to delay it if
To
that's
table
what
it,
is the
right?
will.
Hi, this is Shelley Roars with the League again. I don't know if my questions were just a spiraling kind of where we are, but I'm not a big fan of tabling. No offense. We're here for a reason. I'm not comfortable with doing this. I'm not comfortable with giving you my approval and my vote. I move that we do not approve this with our committee due to the lack of information that we do not have, basically.
I'll second that if that's a motion.
And Shelley, just for
And
clarity,
if-
are you looking for the entire TIP amendment report or are you portioning that out?
Thank you very much, Patty. I will apportion that out because there was the one part that I did agree with, even though I don't necessarily agree with how we're going to redo that funding. But yes, ma'am, thank you. So I move that we do not approve the individual projects on the TIP amendment, but we do approve the portion of the, let me see if I get this right. The MMOF match, I'm not sure how I'm supposed to read this. No, it's the one above. It's on page 12. I'm assuming that's the one, page 12, right?
The
Yeah.
funding swap.
Yeah, the funding swap. Thank you for that. The funding swap for the El Paso County Fleet Electrification Project. That's the funding swap from the ARPA money to the CDOT Carbon Reduction Program funds. So approve that portion of the TIP Amendment 3, but nothing else. That's so moved. My motion.
I think I heard someone say second, but
Sorry, Chris Crockett with Kono seconding.
thank you, Chris. Okay, all those in favor of approving the funding swap only, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any against?
Yeah, Gary Sugar votes against.
Okay, that motion carries with one against. I didn't do a full count, so I'll let them do the math later. As a matter of process, Danelle, do you need us to make a motion to disapprove the other items?
I don't believe so. I believe it was part of that motion. to approve the funding swap and disapprove the others. Is that okay?
Sounds good to me. Okay, member discussion. Do any members have any comments they'd like to share?
Hi, this is Tunisia Sultana. I actually still had a comment on item 5B, very last page, where it says carbon reduction program. It didn't say what, I know we discussed a little bit about that, but below that it also says local. What local program the money is taken out of, or say like reduction happening?
For the local match. So pretty much every transportation funding source has a required local match. The percentage differs depending on what funding source it is. But that local jurisdiction is actually responsible for that local match. So in the case of this project, El Paso County will pay the local match, and that comes out of the El Paso County transportation budget, which is part of the county commissioner's approval process.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions on item 5B? Okay, we'll go back to item number 6, member discussion. Trying to be careful here with my sayings and my statement. I wanted to make sure, of course, this body, I'm sure, is I would wager to guess that we're all voters and we all have every intention on voting, but I know that voting early is often appreciated. So if you have that opportunity, I know that that would be helpful to the counters for that. Does anyone else have anything they want to share on that for member discussion?
Yeah, a couple, Roy Rosenfeld, Manitou Springs, too. And on a lighter note, a couple of things. This Saturday is the Manitou Springs Emma Crawford coffin races, which is the first time it's being done in full since the pandemic. And I myself, I'm dying to go.
Roy.
Secondly, when are we meeting next month? Because normally in December, it occurs around around Christmas. Do we always schedule? Sometimes we adjust that, or are we just meeting the 4th? What
Let me
4th?
check my schedule.
Do we know?
I don't believe we have, so my schedule has a meetings on the 30th of November. I can send out a
For
message to
November.
everybody.
Yeah, okay, that's Thanksgiving week, but it's after Thanksgiving?
Yes, the week after Thanksgiving.
Okay, that'd be okay. And then then we'll talk about this December then.
Tunisia, El Paso County, today's the picture day. So whoever missed it, we're gonna take picture?
Yes, we do have Jared here with the camera, so we can take a staff picture, or I'm sorry, a CAC picture. For those who are here in the room today.
Danielle, this is Ann from Green Mountain Falls. I was just wondering if there's any more information available about assisting people to write grants. Like Green Mountain Falls, we need grant money for roads and fire and so many things. We're working on it, but we're a small town with mostly volunteers.
Yes. So Andy Gunning, our executive director here, has been working with DOLA to get some funding for a grant writer to assist our jurisdictions. I am not 100% sure where they are in the process. I know we haven't gotten the funding yet, but I know that they are anticipating that funding coming, and we've talked with the city, town, and county managers group about that funding and what potentially we can assist people with. So I know it's coming. I just don't have a good update yet.
That's great. Thanks a lot.
Shelley Rose with the League of Women Voters. This is, I guess, I'm not sure if it was member discussion or items for next CAC, but is it possible to get a breakdown of where all the ARPA money is going?
All of the ARPA money?
Because some of it's coming here. Is it possible to see where it's going through PPACG?
The only ARPA money that has come through PPACG that I know of is through the MMOF program. So I can certainly get you that, but let me make sure that that's the only ARPA related funding.
That'd be great. And a breakdown of who got that money and where it went. That'd be awesome. Thank you. And I would also reiterate, Patty, thank you so much for voting. All of us are probably all educated voters, but encourage someone else who might not be one of those voters or who may be a disenfranchised voter. We don't care who you vote for, but thank you so much for voting. And also November 5th is National Love Your Red Hair Day. So we celebrate redheads that day. So thank you so much.
I like that much better than the Kick a Gender Day, which I have heard much about all my life. Okay, I think that we kind of unofficially moved on to item number 7, item for the CAC. We would like to have a presence then of CDOT, obviously. Was there anything else anybody wanted to add for the next CAC agenda?
Shelley Rose with the League. I see we have 2 vacant spots. Is that right?
That is correct.
Can you tell me what the plan is for that? Give me an update.
Yes, we have sent letters to all of the jurisdictions or organizations that will have openings. And I believe Andy Gunning is also talking with members of those communities to figure out how we can best support filling all of those vacancies.
I'd like to request another update at the next meeting for that, please. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, item number 8, meeting, PPACG meeting and event schedule. I did not see that in the agenda packet. I might have missed that. One item, Danelle, I wanted to see if you would be sending out the legislative roundtable information to this group.
I believe so. We've had some potential rescheduling going on due to a conflict of elected officials. So once that is solidified, I believe we can start sending it out to the wider audience.
This is Ann. On that vein too, would that be a Zoom meeting or something so people can listen into what they're saying?
That is a great question. In the past, I believe it has been in person. Jared, have you heard anything about live streaming or?
I believe the intention is for this roundtable will be in person only.
Can the public come, other people?
I think
That
so.
I don't know confidently one way or the other.
And in the past, it has been an opportunity to observe, but not ask questions, that the questions were pre-assigned, I think, by the legislative committee, if I remember correctly last time, which may have been a couple of years ago, pre-pandemic. But they had many chairs at the last event for people to watch and take notes.
I know that committee meets or has been meeting, and when I found out about it, I used to tune in on Monday mornings at 8 or whenever they met on Zoom and just listen and take notes. It was very helpful.
So the legislative roundtable, and Janelle, you might be better explaining this. This is where you invite state legislators and you ask them PPACG legislative related comments and upcoming legislation that they know about or that they're working on. Is that right?
Correct, yes. And we're trying to fit it in after election day, but before bills are introduced and that kind of thing. So it's a touchy window. And yes, we're kicking around an alternate date right now. So once we get that date, we'll move forward with getting more information out.
A comment on that, it sounds very much similar to the same process the city council has when they have a working meeting where they're working with staff, but it is open for people to attend. If it is possible to basically televise that, because the city and the county both have 2 television channels, that'd be a way of bringing the outside public in to see that participation.
Yeah, we haven't discussed that, but we can certainly bring that up with Andy and with the legislative committee and see what they would like us to do.
It is an open meeting.
Mhm.
Okay, was there anything else for the good of the order before we adjourn?
Will you be at the next meeting or is this your last one?
I have one more meeting. It'll be
Oh,
my very
good.
last day.
We don't have to say goodbye yet.
Not yet. And I'll be in person next time. I wanted to be sure that I wasn't in the picture as I'm as an outgoing member. I didn't want to
Oh,
make it weird for anybody. So I'll be there in person next month.
Yeah. Yep, no worries.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting at 4:19 p.m.